Hello, everyone. I'm Melissa McAllister, and you're listening to The Melissa Made Show. Now, for decades, I've dedicated myself to helping women break the cycle of dieting, navigate through all the fads, and change their lives through my nutrition coaching. Now, each week, I'm going to talk about everything from deep nutrition, mindset, self-care, the ideal workout routine, tips on how and why to implement intermittent fasting in your life, my favorite recipes that are not only crowd pleasers, but they're actually healthy for you, and so much more. Now, with small and consistent changes, you can defy aging while living a happier, healthier, and more heart-filled life. I'm so excited to show you it's possible with the right strategies that are so simple to adopt. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Melissa Made Show. I'm about to show you how much I love you, truly. Now, if you saw my story from a couple of weeks ago, I talked about having a guest on my podcast that has been my secret for a really long time. And I actually don't know if, I can't remember if I was introduced to him through Nutritional Therapy Association or Restoration Wellness Solutions, both fantastic. But he was interviewed from them. And I just sat there with my jaw dropped open and I was screenshotting every single thing he was sharing. And I was just mind blown. So from that point on, I went to his social media and started following him. And I'm literally, he's going to blow your mind. And you're going to find answers to so many questions that you have. And I'm just so delighted to have him on here. The guy has more letters behind his name than I think an episode of Sesame Street. So I'm not going to go through all of his credentials, but I will tell you that he's a biochemist and he's also a formulator. And this, if you're driving in your car or you happen to be listening while you're walking, which I know a lot of you guys do, you're going to have to listen a second time because you're going to need a pen and paper to write down some things. I am super excited to talk to him because I have questions and I know he's going to just make the world of health and nutrition a little bit more clear. So who am I talking about? I'm talking about Shawn Wells. And if you are one of the few lucky people that actually know who he is, I know you're going, oh, wow, she got Shawn Wells. He's incredible. If you haven't gotten the opportunity to listen to him to speak or to binge watch his social media, like I know you will, get ready to do that. But Mr. Wells, Shawn, who I just found out literally lives down the street from me. So I told him it's going to be really weird when he sees me in person because I'll fangirl a little bit. And I don't do that very easily. You guys see, I've had some pretty big names on my podcast and but this one, his brain is sexy. We'll just say that he's got a very sexy brain. So anyway, Mr. Wells, Shawn, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate you being here today.
Oh, that's amazing. Like, thank you for that intro. And we're fellow Texans and we're going to have to hang out. We got to have maybe a nice pool day or something. Like, I don't know, just I'd love to kick it with you one day. I live right next to Legacy West and there's a lot of cool places to hang out at. So I would love that.
Yeah, you're going to have to take me to where you got that burger that you posted. That looked pretty dang.
It's one of my favorite places. It's called Kenny's Burgers in Frisco. Yeah, I get my keto burger salad and they just do amazing burgers. So yes.
Yeah, it made me drool a little bit. I'll be honest. I haven't had lunch yet. So I think I'm going to work really hard to keep this podcast not 7 hours long. Don't worry. But where to start is, I think if you share your story of how you got to, being a biochemist and a formulator, it's a very interesting story. It's a very endearing story. If you wouldn't mind sharing that so people kind of have an idea of who you are.
Yeah, I came from a really difficult childhood. My brothers ran away, got kicked out. The remnants for me was very difficult. And I ended up being, having a difficult time at home and then both at school because I put on a lot of weight to kind of deal with that childhood by eating a lot of junk food. And on top of that, I had what we'd call like a gynoid fat distribution. Like I had a big butt. As a boy, that was really tough. So I got called, fat ass all the time. And just even back then it was crazy. Like teachers would bully me even. And, it was just one of those things that I, I was kind of suicidal growing up, very depressed and even suicidal. And over time that took an impact on my health
Yeah.
for sure. And, eventually I was fighting Epstein-Barr, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, Hashimoto's, couldn't get out of bed. After that, like there was brain tumors and a number of surgeries on hips, neck, back, just because I really think my mental state was something of, and by the way, I went through phases of going from obesity like to anorexia and
Wow.
then orthorexia. I went from like 300 pounds to 150 pounds at 6'3". Like, so I was tough. I was really tough on myself, gaslighting myself, just berating myself. I was never good enough, doing anything well enough. And, and that's where I was ending up with my mental health, my spiritual health, my physical health in shambles, and literally could not get out of bed for, 6 months. And I stumbled into nutrition with, keto, paleo, fasting. This was, 20 years ago. And then that kind of led me down the path of going into nutrition and doing nutritional biochemistry and getting my RD and then becoming a biochemist and working as a chief clinical dietitian and wanting to formulate was my goal the whole time. Like I looked at these guys. It was one of the things that happened to me in this process was just working out and using all these supplements, the creatines, the proteins, BCAAs, all this. And I got a massive transformation in my body. Now, I will say that like I still wasn't very whole mentally. That was kind of the orthorexic phase, but it did lead to a pretty massive transformation for me, and I saw the power of supplements, and
Mm.
that was what I wanted to do, is be like one of these formulators. There was a guy in a magazine from Muscle Tech, Dr. Marv Hoyer, and he was wearing he was actually a cardiologist. He wore the lab coat and he had like the beakers with the blue liquids and like there was like bodybuilders like in this like room with him, and he's like showing them like the blue liquid and they're like, okay, like, and I was like, wow, that's what I want to do. And what's cool is like I actually got to meet him and tell him that in Las Vegas at a show that like, you were my inspiration, and that was really cool. And then a lot of at the time it was message boards. This was before like a lot of the social media, the message boards, and a lot of the guys that I looked up to and worshiped that were formulators. This guy, Dr. Sorry, well, he wasn't a doctor, but he smarter than any of them. Patrick Arnold. He actually was involved in this whole Balco scandal, but he
Mm.
came up with all these pro hormones and all these different supplements, and he was a really cool chemist. And a lot of these guys, I was worshiping, and I got to meet them all, and I became kind of a rock star in the industry, all while I was doing this on the side of like being a chief clinical dietitian.
Mm.
Um, and I was just working for free nights and weekends and holidays with these supplement companies. And then eventually I got my role at Dymatize, which is here in Dallas, Texas. And I moved to Dallas for that and helped them sell to Post and reformulated all their products and really put them on another level. And then I
Mm.
got a job with BioTrust and helped lead them to sale here in Dallas. And then I've just been doing my own thing ever since as a formulator. I have a company called Zone Halo where I work for hundreds of companies all across the industry. I do education, I get equity in companies, help lead them to sale, do help them do their due diligence for mergers and acquisitions. I've patented about 30 ingredients, including T-Creen, Dynamine. Infinity is my newest energy ingredient that's
Mhm.
tons of products. I brought ingredients like Beba. We'll talk about a lot of cool ingredients if you want.
Mhm.
I've formulated over 1,000 products. And then, I wrote a best-selling book in biohacking called The Energy Formula that has a lot of my story, and it sounds like I'm bragging, but and it feels good to be where I'm at because I am proud of myself because I've spent 98% of my life not being proud of myself despite having unbelievable accomplishments.
Mhm.
Like every time I got on a podcast like Ben Greenfield, I'm like, well, you suck because you're not on Joe Rogan.
Oh.
Every time I got like a nice house, it's like, okay, well, it's not this house. It's I got this car. It's like, well, it's not that car. It's like,
Mhm.
you have a best-selling ingredient. Well, it's not that ingredient. That's the number one.
Mhm.
It's just that's what I was doing to myself most of my life is just being like the most ruthless uh, gaslighter imaginable. And I spent most of my life feeling humiliated and never enough. And there was plenty of people that I found to put around me to even do that for me.
Yeah.
But when they weren't around, I was doing it as well. So it really took a lot of soul searching to get to all the tools that I put in my book on not only supplements, but mindset and finding the right people and doing a lot of inner work. And really psychedelics has been a huge, huge part of my evolution as well. Really saved my life. I really think like right before I went into my first mushroom journey, I was right on the cusp of taking my life. So it was the first time that I knew I could be loved.
Aw.
So like there's just been a lot of work in the process and that's why I'm here to serve. That's what my platform is number one about is just serving, giving back a lot of free information. Uh,
Yes.
I mean, really a lot of money that I put in on my side to try and just educate people. Um, because I know other people are on the edge. Other people are hurting. Other people are sick. Other people are thinking about taking their life. And that's what I'm all about is trying to help and reach those people and let them know that they are good enough.
Yeah. Well, I have to tell you, sir, that if you have not been invited onto Joe Rogan yet, you will be. I have no doubt. You'd be one of his most interesting interviews for sure. And his book, you guys, is a phenomenal book. We will link it in the show notes, but it was a very, very, very good read. And of course, extremely informative as well. Shawn, I would love to talk about really quick before we go into some of your formulations and what you've discovered a little bit, because being a registered dietitian and being more on the keto side. And I love how you I think this is really important for people to hear, that you feel like they need to earn their carbohydrates. And I 100%
Mm.
agree with you on that. Can you just kind of share your philosophy on uh, and the fact that you just took a big chunk of butter and took a bite out of it as well? I thought that was pretty cool. But your thoughts in general on macronutrients and how you feel about that and keeping you healthy, especially the brain, because I'm sure that's a really big thing for you.
Right. So of the macronutrients, only if we're looking at fat, carbohydrates, and protein, only two of those are really critical and are something that are um, things that you can't live without.
Mhm.
Carbohydrates you can create. So we don't need to consume carbohydrates. We can create that. And as far as fiber, if you're a carnivore, you can actually have butyrate in the gut and you don't really even need the fiber. So it's kind of a myth that like this is like the thing, the staple that everything must revolve around is this carbohydrate. That's just simply not true. And that's why we do have carnivores that are living off of zero carbohydrate and protein and fat.
Mhm.
Um, Not to say that carbohydrates are bad. That is not my opinion at all. Most of the world lives off largely carbohydrate, and
Mhm.
it would be a mistake to not acknowledge that. So the question is, if carbs, like people look at carbs as bad, like how is it that the rest of the world is eating almost all carbs, but they're not fat. Well, there's some really important things there. They are having one, resistant starches. They're not eating everything perfectly ripe. So like a green banana is a resistant starch. A potato that's cold or raw, or more to the raw side, is going to be a resistant starch. Same with rice. When it's cold or more raw, it's going to be a resistant starch. When it's hot, when it's overcooked, that's when it becomes more readily turned into sugar. And a resistant starch is actually feeding the gut and is fiber. So it's prebiotic fiber. Also, they would expend a lot of calories, right? A lot of these other cultures are like working hard. They're moving their bodies. They're doing more laborious work. And so they have a much greater caloric expenditure. They also go periods without eating. Some people call it fasting. Some people call it starving. It depends on where you are in the world. Some people have to look for food, find food. It's difficult to have food. In our culture, food is omnipresent. It's so accessible that we're overeating and we're overindulgent. Their foods are not going to be foods that are ultra processed and scienced to the point where you are hardwired essentially to overindulge in these foods, because they're hitting what's called the bliss point, like where it's literally triggering dopamine and serotonin and endorphins, and like you're like, wow, it's like an orgasm in your mouth, like foodgasm, right? And they're literally doing that with these foods. Like the bliss point is like, it's like making sure that you're getting like soft, like ooey gooey, crunchy, citrus, or like acidic, salty, sweet. Like it's like foods used to be like one thing.
Yeah.
Now they're like 5 things, and you're like your brain wasn't like wired to like deal with this type of one food being all these things. And then, lastly, going back to that point of ultra processed food, we're looking at like maltodextrins and high fructose corn syrup and things that are very high glycemic and are hitting your insulin so that it's overreactive. And we're also in a place where you have not only these high glycemic carbohydrates, but then you have trans fats, you have seed oils that are inflammatory, and they're pairing them up together, in a lot of cakes and cookies, and where you have the fat and high glycemic carbs together, which really doesn't exist in nature. We're okay dealing with carbohydrate. We're okay dealing with fat. But when you put them together, especially the worst forms of both, that's when it becomes high calorie and a high insulin jump up and down. So now we see why other cultures can eat a lot of carbohydrates, but we don't deal with them well. There's a lot of story around this. So 87% of us are metabolically dysfunctional. And that means that we're not making enough ATP, our mitochondria are not working well enough, that we're heading down this path of insulin resistance, and we're getting sick, and we're putting on weight more easily, and we're low on energy. And so this is the situation for most people. And this is why a ketogenic diet can be very effective at reversing this the fastest, because we are insulin resistant, not only systemically in our body, but even in our brain. When we age, it can be called brain energy gap. In the body, it's called insufficient cellular energy states, when we don't have enough cellular energy to do what needs to be done. And so not only do we feel like a lack of energy, but systems are breaking down, and we're heading down the path of disease and pro-aging. And so now this is the situation that most of us are in, where we look older than we should. We have more diseases than America, the wealthiest country practically in the world should have, right? Like we're like 47th in health or something.
Yeah.
It's terrible. So, and we're more obese than we should be, obviously. And so it's almost like that Wall-E scenario where we're just kind of getting carted around and getting fed while we're laying in our chairs. And it's a really sad scenario of like, you know, on-demand life with very little repercussion or work.
Mhm.
So, you know, that's where we're at. And so the ketogenic diet, I really feel like can reverse a lot of that and certainly reverse it the fastest. Ketones are an alternate fuel source, glucose being kind of the most obvious fuel source, but ketones are an alternate fuel source. And we can be dual fuel. But the problem is because we don't fast, because we don't have enough fiber, because we don't work hard enough, or we don't work
Mm.
out hard enough to deplete glycogen, that we're not getting into states where we would be using ketones. Like, whereas other cultures, yes, they eat a lot of carbs, but they're also dual fuel and often using ketones where we're not because we're eating 6 times a day, we're snacking, we're having, you know, all this stuff. So this is where the ketogenic diet can really like turn the lights back on for people and where it can be really profound.
I love that explanation. And for myself and for others as well, can you give I know you can't give specifics, but kind of maybe a blueprint or a guide as far as macros go when you speak of keto? Because right now carnivore is, pretty popular, and then keto is still very popular. And then you've got the Mediterranean style. You've got so many different styles. When you speak of keto, what percentages of the macronutrients in general are you usually talking about?
Yeah, so it's a range with fat between 70 and 80,
Okay.
with carbohydrate 0 to 5, and protein 15 to 25.
Okay.
So it's something like that. You know, some people like to go a little higher on the protein. Um, it's good to get as low as possible on the carbohydrate and not get too into the net carbs.
Mm.
You can have like more room to play when the more muscle mass you have and the more active you are. So this is where I've found consistently over the 20-25 years I've been doing it, that women by and large have a harder time staying in ketosis or really being in ketosis. Um, they they don't have nearly as much muscle mass as most of their male counterparts. Um, and of course, these are generalizations. Of course, there's women out there that are like CrossFitters and, you know, all this, so this won't apply to them. But, you know, women won't have as much muscle mass. And then two, they're not necessarily like as active, especially like as women, you know, typically 40s, 50s, 60s, like, you know, men can, and you know, this isn't all men either, but men might be in, you know, some basketball league and, you know, go to the gym, and it's great that obviously more women are doing that. But again, the more muscle mass you have, the more active you are, the more kind of leeway you have with carbohydrate. And if you're someone who has less muscle mass and you're more sedentary, then, you know, you might have to get below 20 grams of carbohydrates to get into ketosis. And this is what I've found consistently, especially with kind of more, you know, like I was saying, like older sedentary women. I'm finding like it's just harder. And they're
Yeah.
just like, I'm just not getting in. And it's like, it's going to be tough. Like, you almost have to go on like a zero carb diet. And you certainly can't play around with all this net carb stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So moving into one of the formulas, I think you work really closely with, it's the super berberine or the glucovantage, which does help people with this metabolic disorder. And from the studies I've read, it's very beneficial for cholesterol. It's beneficial for lowering blood glucose and HbA1c. Um, but I didn't see anything that talked too much about, body composition or anything like that. But I hear that it has been helpful in people losing weight. Can you just share your love for super berberine and where you think it kind of fits into people's lives, especially today?
100%. So berberine was one of my first loves, being a ketogenic dieter and being like a fat boy at heart. I love my treats. I still love like peanut butter and jelly and cereal, and like, it's part of my keto slash dietitian path to like figure out healthy versions of all my comfort foods. I wish I was just someone who just loved to just eat healthy all the time, quote unquote, and not want the junk foods, but I do. Um, so that is definitely a path that I've explored. And what I've found was berberine had a dramatic effect. I remember my first test, I think I mentioned this in the book, is that I think it was 3 double stuffed Oreos and 2 frosted Pop Tarts as my carbohydrate challenge. And and I took the 500 milligrams of berberine, and I, did that kind of, this was a washout, and all these points I was on keto. So I did the berberine, and then I did no berberine on another day. The one where I took nothing, I ended up getting to around, I was like 199
Mm.
at 2 hours. My blood glucose was 199. And, I was usually sitting somewhere between 60 and 70 for my basal glucose. And so I was like almost at 200. And I wasn't sure if I was like even coming back down. So check this out. This is so crazy. With berberine, this is nuts. I never got above 100, and at 1 hour I was already coming back down. I was checking every 30 minutes. And so that is just insane, the difference,
Wow.
staggering difference. So berberine absolutely works. The problem is, and by the way, there's a study that shows that berberine outperformed metformin, the most famous drug, glucose disposal agent, head to head. It works on this AMP kinase pathway. And so that's exciting in and of itself. But berberine needed pretty large doses, 500 milligrams, and it's 3 times a day. Some people get GI distress. The compliance is low because of how many times you need to take it.
Mm.
And so I wanted to solve this and find like a better version of it. And just looking at the biochemistry, there was at the gut level, berberine is converting to dihydroberberine. And so my thought was, okay, like this might have a higher bioavailability. One, two, you might not need the same gut microbiome bioindividuality, like, because it seems like about a third of people really get a lot of GI distress. So I thought maybe like this might remove that component, and maybe it will last longer. And sure enough, it was all those things where it's about 4 to 5 times the bioavailability. So the doses get, cut dramatically lower. It lasts about twice as long in the plasma. So you only need to take it about twice a day instead of 3 times a day. We don't see the GI distress. So it's just amazing. And, going back to what I was talking about before, this is like my number one most important ingredient. If I was to tell you, like, the ways that you're aging are going to be elevated insulin and blood glucose, and then especially if that stays high, advanced glycation end products,
Mhm.
mitochondrial dysfunction as a result of all of those things, and oxidation and inflammation being high because of those things, and insufficient cellular energy states because of those things, and then obesity kind of like exacerbating all of this. And so when you look at it, like, really, this is where it can have a profound impact on all of it, and really help with the biological versus chronological aging. And so taking, and this is why metformin has been used for 20 plus years with anti-aging communities. There's actually a study right now with the US government with 10,000 people that are non-diabetics, that are in the healthy range, taking metformin for anti-aging purposes, and they're checking that.
Wow.
But, and we certainly heard about semaglutide and, these compounds as well. The thing is, dihydroberberine is to me, what I'm seeing is the safest, best version of all these things, and is the most protective against you aging. And then also helping, I think the point you were making before is like your body composition, because you're preferentially storing glucose in the muscle over the fat. And so this is where it kind of gets into that whole body recomp kind of story, and can help athletes perform better, have a better body composition, keep insulin blood glucose low. It improves dyslipidemia, improves inflammation and oxidation, actually puts a positive stress on the mitochondria called mitohormesis, and helps with mitochondrial biogenesis, increasing your number of mitochondria, reduces ages, which is that advanced glycation end products. So it's just an amazing compound across the board, and it's just my number one most recommended compound to take.
So phrase it relatively safe? I mean, it's not a prescription,
Absolutely.
it's from plants, so there's not much side effects, except.
Well, I mean, yeah. So metformin, people have been using that for over 100 years, and it's very similar to berberine. Actually, metformin was originally used, before it was a glucose disposal agent, was used for influenza. And there is a relation to these kind of flu viruses, and also COVID, if you want to look at that as well,
Yeah.
that this could have a powerful role, being metformin, berberine, dihydroberberine, with some of these kinds of viruses as well, because there is a huge component of elevated blood glucose as well, and its impact on the immune function, all those kinds of things. That's why we saw like a lot of comorbidity issues when people were diabetic, obese, etc., that they had much worse outcomes with both the flu virus and COVID and similar viruses along those lines. So interestingly, metformin's been used for over 100 years, and then berberine has been used for thousands of years as an Ayurvedic medicine from India, and dihydroberberine is simply the active metabolite of berberine. So I do feel safe in saying that all those compounds are relatively safe. I think you're just avoiding with metformin, there's some B12 depletion, and we've actually looked at that with dihydroberberine, and we don't see that. And then we're not getting the GI distress that both metformin and berberine seem to have. So, yeah.
Have you tried countless diets, but you're still seeking your nutrition sweet spot? Are you trying to get results on your health journey to feel your best without being too restrictive? Now, I know how you feel. I've done the diet thing, but there never was that one that totally worked for me. And this is exactly why I developed the MAID diet. Now, I found that rather than restrictions, it's best to have a set of guidelines that allow you to customize based on your preferences and bio-individuality while staying on track with your health and fitness goals. I found the nutrition sweet spot. And as a health and nutrition expert, I get asked all the time what, when, and how I eat. And as someone who's passionate about education and helping others, I want to share that with you. Now, the MAID Diet ebook lays it all out for you, taking the guesswork out of dieting. The MAID Diet is a lifestyle plan that incorporates moderate protein, adequate fat, decreased carbs, and an introduction to intermittent fasting. The ebook gets right down to business by answering your most frequently asked questions. It includes thoughtfully designed recipes and a 7-day sample meal plan to start you off right. It will honestly kickstart your weight loss journey and have you losing inches in your very first week. Now, intermittent fasting combined with these nutritional guidelines is honestly the piece that so many people have been missing when trying to get results. This ebook has all the information you need in a format that is condensed and to the point so that you can get to your results. If you're ready to get started, the MAID Diet ebook is available immediately on my website for just $9.99. So head over to melissamaidonline.com/MAID Diet to take action towards feeling your best today. And once you do, oh my gosh, please let me know it's working for you. I am so honored to be a part of your health journey. Okay, back to the show. Fascinating. Man, I could stay on that one all by itself. But one of the many things that have blown me away, and I am your tester that you don't even know exists. I love to test things, and so in your presentation that you did for my schooling, you talked about a product that blew my mind, and so I immediately ran and I bought it and I used it, and I was like, okay, this is pretty damn cool. And we're going to talk about paraxanthine. I know so many people who obviously take, pre-workouts and have their coffee and have their pick-me-ups in the middle of the afternoon. And you can explain paraxanthine, but I was really blown away by that and the chemistry of it all and how you guys figured out how to take the best parts of caffeine to give people that up without the downsides of caffeine. So will you share a little bit about this discovery that you have that will probably be, I think, life-changing for some people?
It literally is, not like hyperbole aside, like what I'm talking about with dihydroberberine, when I'm saying like 87% of Americans are metabolically dysfunctional, like, and even the healthy ones need to be on it, like that's important. But 90% of the planet uses caffeine daily. 90% of people that use caffeine say they want to use less.
Yes.
60% of those of us that are in this population are slow metabolizers of caffeine, the CYP1A2 gene. So, and this includes me, which is why I brought out T-creen and dynamine. These are like two ingredients that are CNS stimulants that are cleaner than caffeine, that are in, I don't know, close to 1,000 between the two of them, nootropic, fat burner, pre-workout type products. But my crowning achievement is really this paraxanthine, because, and it seems crazy, as a metabolite of caffeine, you would think, how does this not exist? And I get asked that question all the time. And all I can say is, a lot of times things that are visionary, like, really aren't things that are that complex. It's things that the best inventions are things that we all see every day and we take for granted. And we think that's the way it is.
Yes.
Those are the inventions that really change everything. They're not necessarily like this way off dream of like, having some radical new concept. It's the thing that's like, we all have accepted that this is the way it is because we're stuck in these ski tracks, because this is the way we get down the mountain, because the ski tracks are there, so.
Love that.
Really, paraxanthine is one of the three main metabolites of caffeine. So there's theophylline, theobromine, which you probably heard about in chocolate, and theophylline is this bronchodilator that's a controlled substance, a lot of side effects, and paraxanthine. And the majority of caffeine is converted to paraxanthine. So a couple other reasons I think that it wasn't really looked into is that around 80% of caffeine converts to paraxanthine. So most people are thinking, why do I need to take it if that's the majority of caffeine? Here's the problem, is that one, caffeine has toxicity, and caffeine has side effects in and of itself, especially if you're a slow metabolizer. Because the half-life can be anywhere from 1.5 hours for a fast metabolizer to 10.5 if you're a slow metabolizer. So this means, this is half-life. What that means is you go from the full level when you consume it to half that level at that point in time. So in this case, let's say it's 10.5 hours to get to half that level, and then another 10.5 to get to half of that level, a quarter, and so on and so on. So literally 3 days later, you could still have that caffeine that you consumed in your system if you're a slow metabolizer. And this is why, like, we think that we're all experiencing the same compound the same way, but we're not. And some of us are kind of locked in this abusive relationship with caffeine where we get some benefit, but we also get a lot of side effects, and we think that's the way it is. And it doesn't need to be that way. So not only is there this toxicity of caffeine, and again, like that slower conversion, especially when you're a slow metabolizer, means that you're not really getting to paraxanthine very quickly. And paraxanthine is the thing that actually has most of the benefits. So you're stuck kind of in this slow drip to paraxanthine and stuck with all the side effects of caffeine. And theobromine and theophylline have their own set of side effects, as do their metabolites, especially theophylline, which is, again, like a bronchodilator, like just erratic heart rate, arrhythmias, all that kind of stuff. And if you're going straight to paraxanthine, you're clearing all that out. You're clearing out the caffeine, you're clearing out the theophylline, the theobromine, their metabolites, and you get a ultra pure, clean experience. You get the energy, the uplift, the mood lift.
I mean,
And
amen to
so
that.
I can't even tell you how many people are like, I don't drink coffee anymore. I don't drink, I don't have caffeine anymore. Like I only do the paraxanthine. Our branded version's called Infinity. We have about 12 studies now and 23 patents filed. But it's been exciting. Yeah, the last 7 years we've been working on it, and about $7 million of investment. It's grass, so it's generally recognized as safe, approved for food and beverage, and it's every big energy drink company is in conversation right now. The biggest coffee companies, you can imagine the names, the biggest beverage companies, sodas, like you can just imagine all of it. Right now, it's in an energy drink called Update. I'm looking at a lot of products around my apartment right now. Muscle Tech has Euphoric, spelled IQ at the end, and Burn IQ, which is like kind of like their thermogenic powder. There is now hydroxycut capsules and powders that have paraxanthine. There's a new product from a multi-level marketing company called Awakened, that's called Uplift, that has it. And there's just so many more coming out. Peak Performance has a product called just Infinity, that will be on Amazon soon. So you can actually get all these products on Amazon for the most part. So yeah, really, really exciting. Like it's changing people's lives. We're actually seeing improved HRVs, improved sleep while using it, better than baseline while not using anything, which sounds crazy. And certainly with caffeine, we were seeing worsened HRVs. I know it was really cool. My Oura ring, they just did an experiment where for 2 weeks they tracked my caffeine, and I got to see the results on my HRV.
Yeah.
And caffeine does worsen your sleep quality, your sleep duration and quality, and your HRV, your
sure.
recovery. And what we're seeing is improved values when using paraxanthine. And while it sounds crazy, what we saw in our preclinical data, which means the rodent data, which I believe, like some people, discredit completely, but I actually think is some of the most important data, because like, yes, they're not humans, but they're way more controllable in terms of genetics, diet, environment. Like, so in some ways, those studies are actually better than our human studies. But what we saw was improved BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is neuroplasticity. We saw improved glutathione and catalase, the master antioxidant, and reduced oxidative stress. Saw improved nitric oxide to the brain, decreased beta amyloid plaque, improved dopamine and serotonin. And dopamine is obviously neuroprotective, especially against like Parkinson's and things like that. And the amyloid plaque, preventative of Alzheimer's, as is the adenosine inhibition. Like, so in all these different ways, there's about 6 different ways we're seeing it's actually neuroprotective and actually enhancing the health of the brain. And that's what we hear. It has like a nootropic effect, as well as like a much greater mood lift because of the neurotransmitter impact that really has never been seen with caffeine.
I got update. Update. And I did get that off Amazon, and number one, it tastes fantastic. And it was I was drinking it in the middle of the afternoon, and it was a kind of a really cool feeling, the clarity that would show up without feeling the high, without feeling any kind of a crash. And if you guys are understanding all of just so far, the two products so far, how good they are for you. I mean, it seems like here today we take a lot of supplements at the expense of our health instead of taking supplementation that not only helps something specific that you're looking towards improving upon, but there's all of these other wonderful things that happen with it, which is why I really appreciate your work. This is new to me, and I don't know much about it, and I wanted to really look into it, but I was excited for this podcast because I wanted to ask you to share a little bit with me about Grains of Paradise.
Okay, so that's a great one. First off, Grains of Paradise is a gingery, peppery spice that has been used for thousands of years, comes from Africa. Delicious. I cook with it all the time. It's a really wonderful spice. I think you'd come to love it if you use it. It's been used in food products, like Sam Adams actually has a beer that uses it because of its unique flavor. Really wonderful. So explore that in and of itself, add it to your culinary experiences because it's wonderful.
Okay.
But it is a thermogenic spice, like a lot of these things that you might think of, like cayenne/capsaicin, right? Like where a lot of these spices can, even ginger itself, have that thermogenic effect, and it affects what's called the vanillin receptor. And that actually reduces inflammation, including neuroinflammation, and increases your basal metabolic rate, your thermogenesis, increasing body heat and caloric expenditure. So really cool stuff. Now, another thing that's happening that is very unique is the holy grail is brown adipose tissue in big pharma. So what's brown adipose tissue? Brown adipose tissue is a special type of fat. Now, about 99% of the fat on your body is white adipose tissue. And, what you typically think of when you think of fat, like, what might be around your, thighs or your midsection or whatever, that's typically white adipose tissue. Brown adipose tissue, there's only about 5 or 6 ounces, maybe up to 7 ounces on your body. And it's typically around like your collarbone, your scapula, so clavicle, scapula, is where you'll find it. So essentially midsection that's protected, not on your limbs. And what it does is, especially when we're babies, is this thermogenesis is the way that we generate heat before we have the learned ability to shiver. Like around 7-8 months, we learn to shiver and create heat that way. So prior to that, brown adipose tissue is what keeps the baby warm. What we didn't know is that brown adipose tissue is probably the reason that some people can eat as much as they want and not gain weight, is that they have one, more active brown adipose tissue, and two, they have more of it. So ways that we see that you get more brown adipose tissue is having more spicy foods, and two, things like cold exposure. So cold plunges, shiver walks, which is, people walking in their kind of underwear or shorts, or, whatever, when it's cold out, not using blankets at night or using a chili pad. Some of these things are ways to do that. And certainly cold showers, but even better is like, now you're seeing a lot of people get these cold plunges and like the Maruscu Forge or whatever is kind of like the gold standard one. I don't know. There's a lot of these that are coming out. Like I swear every day I'm seeing a new company with a cold plunge tub. So this is an incredible way to activate brown adipose tissue. But what we saw with just Grains of Paradise is it is incredibly effective and isn't that brutally spicy. Like some of these other, like, the habaneros and ghost peppers and things like this. This isn't like that. It's kind of, again, like more like gingery, black peppery. In 40 milligrams, we saw around 100 calories burned. no central nervous system stimulation. So it's not like a stimulant like an ephedra or DMAA or these kinds of synephrine. You're not getting that stimulation, but you're getting essentially calories burned for nothing.
Yeah.
And it's affecting brown adipose tissue long term as well to enhance its effect. But what's really crazy is we just did an internal study with the calorie burn, the patented version that NNB has, where we looked at 3 people. So this is kind of like an alpha study. So it's not really statistically significant, but still is just like, whoa.
Hmm.
That these 3 people that were exercising, not exercising for an hour. The ones that were exercising and used it, so it's like a washout design. So all 3 people, when they did exercise and used it, but we used a much higher dose, but still a very low dose, 160 milligrams. Like that's a tiny, tiny amount of material. 160 milligrams, they burned an extra 250 calories in that hour.
Wow.
That's the same as being on a treadmill
Heck
for an
yeah.
hour.
Heck yeah.
So we were like, what? Like, what are we looking at here?
Wow.
So this is just crazy, crazy stuff. And it needs to be standardized to 6-paradol. That's the active that we're seeing that's the most important. But yeah, the range is somewhere between this 40 milligrams and 160 milligrams, and we're just seeing incredible effect. So definitely cook with it, supplement with it, look into it. There really seems to be no downside.
Mm.
Maybe at higher doses, you might get like a little of a spicy effect if you were to take it on an empty stomach. So, if you take it with food, then that might help.
Like I said, I could make this 7 hours long. And I just want you guys to know that I will ask Shawn here in a minute for you to find places to stock him like I do. I mean, he goes over things like anxiety and depression and cortisol, pre, pro, postbiotics, magnesium. I mean, any and everything that you have a question on. And he's very learn friendly. I mean, he's very easy to understand, but yet he gets straight to the facts. There's no hidden agenda behind his science whatsoever, and you will just be blown away and probably miss a good night's sleep because you will get sucked in. I will promise you that. But Shawn, is there anything else that you're working on, or that you are just it's again something that you're like super proud of that you've been able to help so many people with in your work so far?
A few things. I think a few more ingredients I would love to highlight that are exciting to me. And then, lastly, like I talked about before, I can make a whole other show. I did a 2-hour keynote at Mind Valley U on just psychedelics.
Mm.
And now I'm working on supplement stacks around psychedelics, making them safer, making them the effects, like the integration component, easier.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of work that I'm doing there. Certainly dispelling a lot of the myths and some of the negative media that's existed around psychedelics, but it's also moving forward with the caution, the correct way of treating these things. So that's really important work to me, because again, that's related to where I was with depression, anxiety, PTSD, suicidal thoughts. Like,
Mm.
uh, it's just a hugely important topic to me. And I think every time I've done a speech on it, on these stages, I've broke down crying, because
Life
it's
change.
really yeah, it's just so close to home for me. So that's an important one, but again, that could be a whole other show. So I won't dig into that for now, but just know that that's important to me. But as far as other ingredients, so BABA is called
Yeah.
beta amino isobutyric acid. So butyric acid is that 4-carbon short chain fatty acid that's important to the gut that I talked about earlier. Really the most important postbiotic, like the thing that the probiotics make. So this is where getting tributyrin is actually the most optimized form of the postbiotic that you can get for your gut and for your immune health and
Mm.
gut brain axis. Take tributyrin. But beta amino isobutyric acid, beta, there's actually an amazing an amazing study put out by scientists that was literally the name of the study. And I just love this when scientists are like dorky like me. It was called Come On Beba, Light My Fire, which is like the Doors song, right? So,
Love it.
but Beba is an activator of brown adipose tissue, one, but two, it's an exercise mimetic. So what does that mean?
I remember this.
Literally, it mimics exercise. We've had compounds that were drugs in the past, these peptides and research compounds, ACAR, which is AICAR, cardarine, sorry, which is GW 501, 516, SR 9009. These are all like exercise mimetics.
How do you memorize all that?
I don't know. I don't know how I remember that.
That's incredible.
But Beba is one that occurs naturally in the body, endogenous. That's what that means. Endogenous means in the body, these things are happening. Like exogenous means like supplements or things that are outside the body. So what's happening is that there's something called a myokine, which is like a chemical messenger that's released. Myo means muscle. So it's released when you're intensely exercising from your muscle. And it's the signal to the body that intense exercise is happening. And it actually comes from valine, which is a big part of the BCA muscle pool of amino acids in muscle. And so when the body senses Beba, it says, okay, intense exercise is happening, and it turns on the whole epigenetic milieu of improving VO2 max, improving bone mineral density, improving muscular strength, and reducing, fat mass, improving fat utilization, and improving, glycogen utilization and storage, improving ketone utilization. All these things, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, neuroplasticity, like anything that you can think of, like muscle innervation with nerves, like all this stuff is enhanced with Beba. And so the thought was there when we came out with Beba is, okay, like if Beba is elevated, will that relate to increasing all these other things? And that's where we're studying right now with a training study. But before that, we did see that when we supplement with exogenous Beba, meaning the supplement version outside the body, we see endogenous Beba levels heightened. So you're augmenting the signal. And what we also see is that people that are more sedentary or overweight / obese have much lower Beba responses. So they need more to kind of get them out of this slump. So this is really exciting that, Beba could be the key to getting more out of every rep, out of every step when you're exercising, is using Beba. So that's a really exciting one. That one's called Mito Burn, is the branded version. Another one I'm excited about is ergothioneine, because it could be a new vitamin.
Oh,
really exciting. There hasn't been new vitamin in, I don't know, like 100 years.
hey.
And so we've actually shown that there is a deficiency for it. There's actually a cognitive impairment, that there is, you don't make it. Therefore, you need to consume it from the diet, and it's found in organ meats, certain beans, and a number of mushrooms, very low levels. There is a unique transporter system for it in your body and a unique storage system for it in your body. So think about that. To have a unique transporter for just this compound, that should tell you in terms of evolution how important this compound is. The only other thing that I can think of that has unique transport and storage is iron. And that is the most critical thing for life. So really exciting stuff on ergothioneine. You only need like 5 to 10 milligrams a day, tiny dose. It does protect the mitochondria. It's a more effective antioxidant than CoQ10, than glutathione, than vitamin C in terms of its cellular protection. So really exciting, a lot of things to come there, protecting the immune system. Anywhere there's more mitochondria is where you're going to see probably the greatest impact. So those tissues that are mitochondrial dense are going to be, we just talked about brown adipose tissue. The reason brown adipose tissue is brown is actually because it has so many mitochondria.
Oh,
And you might think, okay, like you might remember your high school biology where that's the, powerhouse of the cell. And, whatever, that there was one mitochondria in this drawing, but
yeah.
there's up to 5,000 of them. So a cardiomyocyte, which is like a heart muscle cell, is going to have up to 5,000 of these because it's so energy dependent. And same with your brain is highly energy dependent. So where we're going to see things that are mitochondrial ingredients, think like CoQ10, PQQ, NMN, things like this, as well as ergothioneine, have the biggest impact is the brain, the heart, brown adipose tissue. So really exciting stuff there. And I would say my last one would be dileucine. This is a new ingredient I've been working on that's just about to hit the market. Branded name is DL185, or RAMPS is another name. We're between the two. And stands for rapid action muscle protein synthesis.
Oh.
And a 185 is actually because it's 185% faster than regular leucine, which is has been the gold standard for the last 100 years on muscle protein synthesis. So muscle protein synthesis is anabolism, means the creation of more muscle or the maintenance of muscle. All of our tissues are going through a constant turnover of anabolism and catabolism, of buildup and breakdown. So it's really important that we hold on to muscle to build it, if you want to like have more muscle hypertrophy, and certainly to protect against muscle wasting as we age, sarcopenia, or if we're sick, it's called cachexia. This is really important. It's probably the top determinant of our longevity, and how well we age is how much muscle mass you have. It also, when you have more muscle mass, it protects your bone mass.
Yeah.
So this is important for women in particular as they age, is keep more muscle. But so dileucine, what's really fascinating here is I was reading research, and there's a transporter in the gut called the PEP1 transporter, and it actually takes up di and tripeptides faster and preferentially over single amino acids. So this means when there are 2 or 3 amino acids are the building blocks of protein. And an amino acid would be things like tyrosine, glutamine, leucine, things like this, that you would think that single amino acid would be the fastest, but it's not. Because of this one transporter, it's taking up 2 or 3 amino acids faster. So my thought was, okay, leucine is the thing that's the most important amino acid, if you will, for muscle protein synthesis, the trigger. So what if we made it 2 leucines and put them together? And what we saw is that, again, this is just mind-blowing, 185% faster. We saw 60% more muscle protein synthesis, like 80% more leucine in the muscle. It's just mind-blowing, the difference. Like, it's not a question of taking more leucine either. It's really like a lot of these things that are signals in your body. It's how quickly they can achieve like a quick peak. It's called like PK, like pharmacokinetics, like how quickly things can spike in the plasma to send that signal to have something turned on. So when something's kind of slower and kind of more of a rounded hump, you just never really optimize. So it's not a question of taking more, it's a question of how quickly you can get it to hit. And essentially, this is the fastest thing next to like IV.
Yeah.
So this is really exciting as a breakthrough, not only for bodybuilding and sports nutrition, but certainly clinical applications with, again, cachexia, sarcopenia, aging, therapy applications. So we're really excited about that, especially in conjunction with things that are anti-catabolic, that are muscle sparing, things like HMB. If you were to put these two things together, dileucine and HMB, you'd really have a powerful tandem at kind of tipping the scales towards, gaining muscle and protecting muscle.
And that's what's going through my mind right now. Whoa, so much is going through my mind. But the fact that you have all of these amazing products, and I just can't imagine that they wouldn't work really well together. And I'm absolutely convinced, Shawn, you're going to live to 120 years old because of all that
That's
you know.
actually how old I am. I didn't tell you that. So
You look fantastic.
thank you. Thank you.
And I know that people just like me, I mean, I've been your number one stalker, so I have an idea, but people are like, what? I mean, they're big words. There was a lot of science talk and stuff like that. But one of the things that you're really, really good about, number one, his book is he goes through so many of these kind of things. Plus he's very inspirational, motivational. I will say that on top of it. You have just a wonderful, your Instagram, you have to tell me if you're anywhere else, but your Instagram account is, when he said that it's his life's work to just get this information out, he has, bar none, the most informative Instagram account that I've ever followed. And so if you're like, oh, that was so much, you can just trust that he shares it and he breaks it down, and he's just a wealth of knowledge. So you don't have to panic that, you know, I missed something, or I don't understand something, or I'm going to spell it wrong. I won't find it on Google. You're going to find it on Shawn's Instagram, or I don't know if you have a website or any other places.
I do. And I also answer my DMs, and I'm here to help. And absolutely. So yeah, my Instagram is probably like my main focus. YouTube is a focus as well. So my Instagram is just at Shawn Wells, ShawnWells, at Shawn Wells. And it's my name. And then ShawnWells.com is my website. And I have a lot of stuff there. I have a really great newsletter that we put a lot of work into that goes out every week. It's really informative, and we don't spam or send anything else. And the newsletter's free. The Energy Formula book is energyformula.com, and you can find out about, you know, going to Amazon, or also getting like the free unlocks. I have a hidden chapter on natural movement, recipe guide, a bunch of stuff on there. And I have the book in ebook, Audible, soft cover, and hardcover. And there's a couple free chapters that you can listen to or read on the site there, so you can see whether you like it. I go through all the supplement stacks, all the cool devices, like, and it's really unbiased information, as well as my story, to say that, you know, these are the things that work for me, but I also walk through the bio individuality to say, like, this may or may not work for you. Here's some other options. I don't sell that one way is the only way. And then lastly, if you are like a company that's out there looking to hire a formulator, want someone to help you scale, go to sale, my team is amazing, and that's zonehalo.com. And I do that work as well. And yeah, that's it. So yeah, follow me in those places, and I would greatly appreciate it. And thank you for having me on the show. I can talk about 100 other things. So yeah, appreciate it.
The nootropics and the psychedelics is, I'm obviously very low scale when it comes to understanding any of that, but there's no one that I would love to learn more about it. So maybe I can have you on another episode here in the near future, if that's possible. But, and if I being the greedy girl that I am, I'm like, gosh, I should charge for this episode. It's so much information, Shawn. You definitely delivered, and I am personally grateful. You know, being a therapy practitioner, I use your education a lot. I always give you credit to, and you know, your supplementation. I work with a lot of supplement companies, but I trust you, and I know that super berberine is a better form than a lot of other ones out there. So from a personal standpoint, I really appreciate all the work that you do, and very grateful to have met you. And you're going to see me around a corner one day.
I would love that.
I'm going to put my book in my car because I get you to autograph it for me. But thank you so much for your time today. And you guys, you are very welcome. You don't have to message me. You're very welcome.
Thank you for having me on, Melissa. I appreciate it. And I know it's kind of like trying to roll as fast as I could, talk as much as I could to squeeze as much in as possible because I was a half hour late and that was my fault. So sorry about that.
I would rather you than me, to be honest. When I was talking to my assistant, Kelly, I said, I just hope he's okay, because you always get those fears that something's not okay, but you were okay. So all is good. And as I always say to my following, Shawn, that I hope they wake up feeling prepared and go to bed feeling proud. And I have no doubt after this episode, they're going to feel incredibly prepared. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Wow, we've reached the end. But before I leave you, I'd love to hear from you. After all, it's not every day that someone reaches out and asks for your opinion. And to me, your opinion does matter. So please share this episode with anyone that you think needs to hear this message. And remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. My name is Melissa McAllister. And until next time, thank you for being your own health advocate.